Dear Mum and Dad, well, I've made it to Anakiwa, and it's not where I thought it was. The outward bound school is at the end of Queen Charlotte Sound, so you don't pass it on the way to Wellington on the ferry. In fact, you turn left after leaving Picton. When I first saw the school, it looked like a sort of holiday camp, and I thought this will be neat. So did the other guys. There was a group of us from the South Island, and we all arrived at the school by boat. When we marched along the jetty, I thought, well, I'll just get rid of this pack and then I'll go for a swim, because the beach at the school really looked inviting. But it didn't turn out that way. We'd no sooner stepped foot on the place when they had us getting stuck in. I thought I was fit until I met the instructors. They are super fit and they keep us on the go all day. First thing in the morning, they're at us. Honestly, those instructors don't even stop to breathe deeply. But after only 5 minutes, most of us have had it, or so we think. But the instructors don't seem to notice our condition. They just keep giving us more exercises to do.
During this exercise, breathe out and in at the same time. Raise your right leg. 1 foot off the ground.
I felt like dropping out, but you can't really, not when you see the girls keeping up. There's quite a few girls on the course, but we hardly ever get time to even talk with them. After the PT, you think, that's it, now we'll go and have breakfast. Not on your life. They send you on a 2-mile run, 2 miles. And you think, there's no way I'll be able to run 2 miles. But everybody else is doing it, and somehow your legs keep going. After the run, you're invited, or should I say told, to get straight into the water. Not for a leisurely swim, mind you. Oh no, there's no time for a leisurely swim. It's just to freshen you up. And then, it's off for a shower. A cold shower, outside. And what do you think, Mum? We shower with the girls. After that, there's breakfast. And after that, we have to rake out the paths and roads every morning. The place really looks tidy after we've done the raking. It's a bit like your old army fatigues day. It sort of reduces us all to equals. I'm not so keen on sailing now. We had to take the school's cutter out in the Cook Strait while it was blowing a gale. But the wind stopped on the way back, and we had to row the last 8 miles home. We had all types on the boat, and everyone worked together. The warden says it's good for our soul.
The group in the boat helping us today, I guess are from a rather more restricted area of education. They've all got fairly responsible positions in the work they're doing, or they're students still. But on many of the courses that we have, many of the groups in school at the moment, there are folk who've come from a much wider range of backgrounds, manual trades, apprentices. We've even got 1 or 2 that some might call dropouts. You wouldn't distinguish them, seeing them on the course. This course is for anyone, everybody. There's no ideal student for Outward Bound. The person in the outside world often says, oh, that boy needs to go to Outward Bound. I've heard this said myself. They often refer to chaps who are in gangs of one sort or another, or delinquents and so on. But a lot of those chaps are very, very confident. They've got abilities and so forth. I think they will gain from this experience, but I don't think in any sort of punitive or corrective way is what we should necessarily set ourselves up for. I think he's going to discover that there are many occasions when he's got to ask for a bit of help. That's a humbling experience, good for one's soul, to discover that you're not cock of the walk. To discover on occasions that you've got the strength that you can offer, to give the help that is often needed. And most of these tasks are group tasks, so help has to be shared, skills have to be shared, talents have to be shared. And just discovering what talents one has and has not got, I think is the essence of the ideal Outward Bound experience. And you have to have all sorts of abilities and talents and backgrounds present for that sort of sharing to be able to take place. If we were selective and had, say, 70 Queen Scout All Blacks arrive on a course, it'd be a terrible course. There'd be too many people trying to be king of the road, I think. Too many imagining that they had all sorts of abilities. Equally, I think if we had 70 delinquents all arrive on a course, we'd have... Gust, just stand by the sheets there, chaps. Can't read this one. We're reaching. Ease off a wee bit, please. See, this game that we're involved in right now, it doesn't really matter what backgrounds people came from. If this thing flips over, I hope that I get plucked out of the water by some of these guys. I don't care what they do for a job, just get me out of the water. Just ease off a wee bit.
The other day, we went up to this river with the canoes, more than a dozen of us. We spent a couple of days on the river, and I don't know how many times I capsized my canoe. It looks so simple. Some of the other guys got the hang of it pretty quickly. But me, every time, a coconut. And then the guys paddle over and help you out. And you think, if they can do it, I can do it. So back you go, and you try again, soaked to the skin, with your hamstrings aching because of the way you have to sit in the things. You paddle down to the waterfall. It's not a big one, but it's tricky. And you finally make it, and you know, you really feel good. And when you get that feeling, you forget about being cold and sore. And if one of the other guys slips over, it's your turn to paddle over and make sure he's okay. You know, I wouldn't mind taking up canoeing when I get back. You know how much I hate porridge, Mum? Well, I've got over that now. It's funny how you get to like porridge when you're really hungry. We've been camping out overnight in the bush, and it's always porridge for breakfast. We camped out in the rain one night, just after we arrived. We hardly knew each other, and some of the guys weren't exactly the sort of blokes I'd normally want to make friends with. But when you're all lumped together, it doesn't take long to get to know each other. You know, it's a funny thing, but I haven't heard one argument so far. Not one.
Have a look and see if you can see some handholds.
Right. You'll be pleased to know we've got a budding Ed Hiller in the family. Me.
Coming on one.
They've got this 1,000,000-foot high rock face just behind the school. Well, it looks 1,000,000 feet high. And the instructor said, "You're all going to climb that." And I thought, you must be joking. He wasn't.
Take up on one.
That's another thing. I've seen this rock climbing business so many times, and it looked a piece of cake, only because it wasn't me doing it.
Don't over.
Take up on two.
Otherwise, you're in a secure position. You should be able to flick it from there. Right up. Give him a bit more rope. Story. Yep, that's it.
The instructor kept on yelling encouragement at me, but it wasn't him holding onto the lifeline. It was one of my classmates. He was holding me from death, and he'd never done this sort of thing before either. They really throw you in the deep end here. I wasn't scared. Well, maybe a wee bit. Like when I couldn't find a hand or foothold, and my boots kept slipping. I was telling you about our instructors, the really super fit guys. I don't think I'll ever be as fit as them, but by the time I get home, I'll bet I'll be able to do 50 press-ups non-stop, and 50 sit-ups, and 50 pull-ups, and anything else you want to throw at me. In fact, if you like, Dad, I'll show you a few exercises and maybe take you jogging.
Three.
603, was it?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, that would
6'7".
bound. Who needs a Charles Atlas course? You know, I was telling you about the girls on this course. They really amaze me, and the other guys. They do everything we do, everything. They went on their solo last week. Each girl left on a beach by herself with a handful of food and a bivvy for 3 days and nights. And it was raining when they started. When they collected them 3 days later, most of them hadn't eaten their food. It was a sort of challenge they gave themselves. It's our turn to go solo tomorrow. The girls, they live in their own dormitories. The other night, they got back to the school at 11 o'clock. after being in the bush in the rain for 3 days.
Grime and slime still coming out of my head. Yeah. I don't even think I got all the dirt off. No, I didn't.
I kept my ink on the rim of that wheel. Oh, really? What's the date tomorrow?
The 9th?
Friday, a week to go.
A word of advice this morning before we break from here. After lunch, there's to be the marathon, as you know. We strongly advise this morning that you don't set things up so that you might suffer during the marathon with stomach cramps and associated problems that can come from stuffing yourselves with a lot of solid foods. If you must take things in this morning, please try and confine it to fluids. Copious fluids will not do you any harm, and in fact it might be to your benefit, and lace them with sugars and salts. Those sorts of things you may take in, but not solid heavy foods. You may regret it when you come to get onto this run after a few miles of heavy labour. The old body starts to object if it's got a lot of stuff slopping around in there, not properly digested. Stomach cramps, diarrhoea, that sort of thing.
There it is.
The marathon course is 14 miles. That's further from Dunedin to Waitati, and I ran it, and so did the girls, and one of them beat me. She was only a wee thing. She looked sort of like Mia Farrow. 14 miles of rough track, uphill and down dale, through the bush, and it was raining. Talk about a challenge.
Run like that all the way.
Surname.
Nickel, Dennis. Scott. Come on, Marty, now. Go, Jeff. Go.
I thought about a lot of things during that run. This whole experience makes you start thinking. I can't really explain what I mean, except that I think I've discovered another me, and that other me can do all sorts of things.
Anakiwa is not an adventure camp. It's not a training school for outdoor pursuits. It doesn't create super athletes, nor is it necessary to be one to be able to complete its courses. The Outward Bound movement provides for all ages of both sexes and for the handicapped as well as the able-bodied. Anakiwa and its instructors simply provide the means by which its students are faced with mentally, emotionally and physically demanding situations, and then provides the encouragement necessary for the individual and the group to accept and overcome them. Anakiwa is open to anyone, and since 1962, 10,500 young folk have graduated from their Outward Bound experience, having discovered resources of determination, cooperation and leadership, which would otherwise remain unused for their lifetimes. Applied in their everyday lives, these qualities become the assets of their community and employers. Many business and community agencies already support the Outward Bound concept by providing funds, goods and services, and by nominating students and financing them. But the demand for courses is growing, and with it, our need for support. At present, the New Zealand Outward Bound Trust enjoys the support of 6,000 members, but new members are always welcome. If you would like to become associated with the Outward Bound movement, contact the Outward Bound Trust, P.O. Box 3158, Wellington.
Dear Mum and Dad, it's good to be away on our honeymoon after all the wedding formalities. We've been in the Sounds for the last few days, and yesterday we called into Anakiwa to see the Outward Bound School again. It's been 8 years since I did my course there, and I hardly recognise the place. It's virtually been rebuilt, and most of the buildings we used have now gone. We spent $1.5 million on the new buildings, which really look as though they belong in their natural surroundings. The bunk rooms are much better than the worn-out ones we had. They'll be easier to maintain too, but they're still pretty Spartan. We've even got a properly designed toilet and shower area, and good space for storage too. You should see the dining hall, it's terrific. The old one was like eating in a sardine can. I could never understand how they managed to feed all of us starving students from the old one. The catty old storerooms are gone and there's a new block for all the special equipment to be kept in, so the gear's much better looked after now. Someone told me that over 1,200 guys and girls go to the school every year now, and there's a new warden too. The course hasn't changed much. I saw some students coming back from an expedition and they looked just like I remember feeling, absolutely worn out, but kind of elated at what we'd managed to achieve. It was strange going back there and remembering the exhaustion, and the fear and the triumphs and the friendships. My experiences there and the lessons I learned still help me in a lot of ways. If we ever have kids, I'd like them to have an opportunity to go there. Perhaps I should join the Outward Bound Trust and start doing something to support the school.